Gather round, dear visitors, gather round, for 'tis All Hallows' Eve. The spirits of the dead are restless this night, and walk those dark streets outside. The Fae, ever capricious, dance and hunt through the woods and forests, beautiful and terrifying all at once. It's dangerous out there tonight, my friends, so why not stay here instead? We can pass the time with grim tales and chilling verse. It would be a most terrible fate awaiting us, should we anger these restless spirits and curious fair folk. But a tribute of words I often find does wonders to calm the creatures that roam the land. Won't you join me, dear visitors? You'll stay? Marvellous! Simply marvellous! Then please, make yourself comfortable and enjoy these chilling tales on this most supernatural of nights. Our first poem is Her Strong Enchantments Failing by A. E. Houseman. Her strong enchantments failing, her towers of fear in wreck, her limbex dried of poison, and the knife at her neck. The queen of air and darkness begins to shrill and cry, "O young man, O my slayer, tomorrow you shall die." O queen of air and darkness, I think 'tis truth you say, and I shall die tomorrow, but you will die today. Our next tale is Dead Man's Hate by Robert E. Howard. They hanged John Farrell in the dawn amid the marketplace. At dusk came Adam Brand to him, and spat upon his face. "Ho neighbours all," spake Adam Brand, "see ye John Farrell's fate. 'Tis proven here a hempen noose is stronger than man's hate. For heard ye not John Farrell's vow to be avenged upon me? Come life or death, see how he hangs high on the gallows tree." Yet never a word the people spoke, in fear and wild surprise, for the grisly corpse raised up its head and stared with sightless eyes, and with strange motions slow and stiff pointed at Adam Brand, and clambered down the gibbet tree, the noose within its hand. With gaping mouth stood Adam Brand, like a statue carved of stone, till the dead man laid a clammy hand hard on his shoulder bone. Then Adam shrieked like a soul in hell, the red blood left his face, and he reeled away in a drunken run through the screaming marketplace. And close behind the dead man came with a face like a mummy's mask, and the dead joints cracked, and the stiff legs creaked with their unwonted task. Men fled before the flying twain, or shrank with bated breath, and they saw on the face of Adam Brand the seal set there by death. He reeled on buckling legs that failed, yet on and on he fled, so through the shuddering marketplace the dying fled the dead. At the riverside fell Adam Brand with a scream that rent the skies. Across him fell John Farrell's corpse, nor ever the twain did rise. There was no wound on Adam Brand, but his brow was cold and damp, for the fear of death had blown out his life as a witch blows out a lamp. His lips were writhed in a horrid grin, like a fiend on Satan's coals, and the men that looked on his face that day, his stare still haunts their souls. Such was the fate of Adam Brand, a strange, unearthly fate, for stronger than death or a hempen noose are the fires of a dead man's hate. I can think of few poems more appropriate for tonight, dear visitor, than this one, Halloween in a Suburb by H.P. Lovecraft. The steeples are white in the wild moonlight, and the trees have a silver glare. Past the chimneys high see the vampires fly, and the harpies of upper air, that flutter and laugh and stare. For the village dead to the moon outspread never shone in the sunset's gleam, but grew out of the deep that the dead years keep, where the rivers of madness stream down the gulfs to a pit of a dream. A chill wind weaves through the rows of sheaves in the meadows that shimmer pale, and comes to twine where the headstones shine, and the ghouls of the churchyard wail for harvests that fly and fail. Not a breath of the strange grey gods of change that tore from the past its own can quicken this hour when a spectral power spreads sleep o'er the cosmic throne and looses the vast unknown. So here again stretch the vale and plain that moons long forgotten saw, and the deadly Decay in the pallid ray sprung out from the tomb's black maw, to shake all the world with awe. And all that the morn shall greet forlorn, the ugliness and the pest of rows where thick rise the stones and brick, shall some day be with the rest, and brood with the shades unblessed. Then wild in the dark let the lemurs bark, and the leprous spires ascend, for new and old alike in the fold of horror and death are penned, for the hounds of time to rend. Come closer, dear visitor, as I tell you of two hauntings, the first from my very own hometown. There is a house on a street called Woodcock Street, where it is said the apparition of a large man can be seen walking through the front door and taking a seat in the kitchen, where he sobs. In one hand he holds a razor, in the other a rope. It is also said that children can be heard crying, and the ghastly screams of a woman can be heard. For many a year there was rumours, mysteries and gossip as to just what the cause of this haunting was. It was only recently that the horrifying incident behind this terrifying series of apparitions was uncovered. On Saturday, February 18th, 1905, 42-year-old John Timmins had an argument with his wife of 36. They had been married 16 years. Timmins' wife had been out drinking, and this led to an argument when she arrived home. Timmins was a jealous man, and while his wife slept, he took a jagged razor and sliced her throat. He then waited several hours before trying to take his own life, but he was discovered, arrested, and a date for a trial was set. John Timmins remained in the hospital during his trial, and his own daughter spoke out against him. He eventually died in that hospital and was buried in the Western Cemetery of my hometown, leaving behind 8 children who were soon taken into care by their relatives. It is said that the Timmins family tragedy is the cause of the hauntings of Woodcock Street. This next story is not for the faint of heart, dear visitor. It tells the tale of young Mary Clark of Whitby and her tragic end in fire. No one is quite sure why young Mary had gone to the baker's on the day of her death. Some say she was there in winter to hide from the biting sea winds that batter the North Yorkshire coast. Others say she was there in summer simply to heat up a meal for a sick relative. In all the tellings of the story, however, Mary's horrific death remains the same. The baker on duty had only stepped out for a moment, but that was all that was required to seal Mary Clark's fate. When the baker returned, he found the woman engulfed in flame. She screamed and bolted through the doors, out into the busy streets. The crowds panicked and ran from the screaming, burning woman. Her skin blistered and bubbled, her bones charred black, her blood boiled in her veins. By the time the baker had managed to put the flames out, Mary's fate was sealed, but she was not granted the mercy of a quick death. She was rushed to a local hospital, her flesh falling off in semi-liquid chunks, filling the entire town with the scent of burning skin and hair. She lingered in unthinkable agony for close to an hour before she finally passed. Is it any wonder her spirit does not rest easy? She still wanders Whitby to this day, her presence marked by the smell of burnt flesh and hair, the sight of hellish flames, and finally the appearance of the charred, wailing phantom herself. Her blackened, empty eye sockets stare into the very souls of those unfortunate enough to meet her, and it is said the sight never leaves one's memory. I hope you've enjoyed these tales and poems, dear visitors, and that I have been a good host. Hospitality is sacred, after all. I wonder if there is any greater meaning behind the stories we have shared, or if they simply feed into that curiously human desire to feel fear. Either way, if you wish to leave my company, feel free, but do remember the dangers out there on this eve of occultism, the antediluvian powers of the Fae, the cruel gaze of the Morrigan, vengeful and terrible, the revenge-hungry restless dead, unjustly hung, beaten and murdered, vampires stalking the shadows, harpies with their foul laughter and hideous wings, and even greater, older and more terrible powers that our minds can barely grasp. There's a real power in stories, don't you think? How they've endured and changed to frighten and excite countless human minds down the innumerable centuries. What stories will our children and grandchildren swap on this night in the future? Will they know of the Fae, of vampires, of ancient gods and the revenge-hungry dead? All new horrors have supplanted ours. Regardless, I am rather tired, dear visitors. I fear I must retire for the evening. You are welcome to stay, of course. Oh, and don't have nightmares.